Now let's talk about preparing the mind and the body for all of this because going through this stuff is stressful. Having these conversations with parents can be very challenging because you can feel lost at times, like dead ended, even. This is a
Yeah.
non starter for some older parents and with their adult children, right? For some help, we are turning now to Maris Pasquale Doran, who's a psychotherapist based in Summit. Also, not going to hold that against her.
Yeah, she actually reached out to us when she heard us talking about this on an earlier episode, and she wanted to share some of her experiences she's had relating to all of this, both in her practice and in her personal life. So let's start there.
I've been a psychotherapist for a number of years, and I myself went through a personal experience being in this sandwich generation and now in the sort of post phase and managing grief, et cetera, while showing up as a parent. My own father was diagnosed and sick with pancreatic cancer back in 2019 diagnosis, and he died March of 2020. And
Mm,
so that experience, I attribute a lot of my ability to be very kind of present or to be who I wanted to be in that role very much to my mindful practice, meditation. Some of the nervous system regulation was so necessary, and it was still a constant fight or flight. There's so much to that area that I have taken now into my practice to really help support clients in that area, both during the actual time period of illness and aging, because it's not just an illness, of course, right? Everybody's aging, and really looking at much more macro, what that brings up for us in terms of our family of origin stuff, for lack of a better word, as well as our own parenting at home, often very close to launching kids, the very multi-level layers of grief that come up in midlife as a baseline, and that very kind of existential place where is really the rich work that I love as well of, we really looking at more what is the legacy we are now leaving as we're
yeah.
watching our parent decline and pass? In my situation, my father was diagnosed
Yeah.
very quickly. I mean, it's hours that you're trying to make huge decisions: what facility, surgery,
Yeah.
not surgery, chemo first, second, what to do. I mean, we were like hamsters on a wheel
Yeah.
with legal pads like Cancer Co. I'm lucky. I'm one of four siblings,
Mm,
and my mom is still alive, very competent people. And my dad at that time in life was also involved in his own care at that point,
yeah.
right? And these six high functioning, intelligent people, significant jobs and very successful in all their realms, were trying to just suddenly get a PhD in oncology overnight. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not possible.
It's so true. I remember every time my dad got moved to a new hospital, there was so much pressure on me to be there for the intake, as I said before, mainly so I could be sure to explain to these doctors what his history was because of these continuity of care issues. They're a real weak point in our system. And I remember one time I was giving my dad's history to a new doctor, and he was like, "Are you a neurologist?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Aw,
Oh, thank you.
shucks. I'm not. I've just had to learn this stuff to make
Oh
sure
my
you people
God.
understand it and communicate it effectively. And I always hope it gets socialized to the broader care team because
Mm.
they work 12-hour shifts. That was a whole other thing. I was like, who's the nurse? Who's the attending? Who's the next nurse? And
Yeah.
who's the next attending? Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and then the
dude.
nurses change,
Oh
overnight.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's
And
so
depending on,
stressful.
it was.
And we
We actually talked to Pasquale Doran about how to deal with that level of stress, and this is an important part of the conversation. Listen to this.
I want to also highlight that a lot of people think about mindfulness being meditation, and meditation is a mindful practice, but mindfulness isn't meditation. I believe in meditation deeply, privately, personally. I think it helped me get through that phase of my life. Absolutely, no questions. And mindfulness is really being in the moment. So we
Yeah.
can do it in the shower. You can do it in ways that you're doing these things anyway. You're always going to eat dinner. Can you do it a little bit more mindfully? Can you walk to the bathroom a little more mindfully, right?
A-
Can we
And
get
that
off
and
the
what that
phone?
and what that means basically for people who struggle with this, because it's kind of hard to think about. It's hard to really reckon with if you've never done it before, but it's basically as simple as just think about what you're doing and the experience of what you're actually doing, right? Like,
Exactly.
how does the water in the shower feel hitting me right now? How does it feel brushing my teeth? And it can be for
Exactly.
30 seconds, right? And just doing that kind of triggers a different part of your nervous system. Is that right?
And it's training us to be aware. So
Yeah.
we are grooving patterns now in our brain that is that is really teaching us, let's be aware of what in the
Mm.
world is going on for me right now. What are my inputs? I mean, how often have I gone to my basement and then been like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
Why did I come down here? I have no idea. Or you wake up in the morning and suddenly you're like brushing your teeth. It's like, wow, what happened from A to B? But I'm here now, right?
Yeah.
And to actually be aware of the moments that are happening, that's what's going to help. Before, when we were talking about that responsiveness rather than being
Mhm.
reactive,
Yeah.
because you're training, right? So, yes, for example, for a parent, a mother who has a teenager who's, by the way, their hormones are also going wild. The mother herself is in perimenopause with hormones that are going wild. We have all this chaos happening internally, enormous stress over launching children, enormous stress over an aging or sick parent. And then we get in the shower. That can be a really beautiful self-care moment. Just because you're alone, it's nice and warm, maybe something smells good. Period. That's great, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And if you can actually pay attention to each of the senses, let me take one extra moment to really smell my soap, to feel it lather, to feel the shower, right? Some people, it's like, why? I don't have time to take an extra
Yeah,
few
yeah.
minutes. Guess what? Don't then. Just be where you are, because that training, that neuro pathway, those neurons that fire together, wire together, right, are going to be that storyline in there of what you do for yourself is going to help you show up more present when your teenager is horrible to you, when your parent has the crisis, when your spouse doesn't feel empathetic, so that you can use those skills and respond rather
Mm.
than react. You're still going to have the emotion, right? You're still going to be mad, angry, stressed, all of that. And to respond rather than react is going to help those guilt cycles.
Um,
Yeah.
you have to be so intentional though about these moments. And then imagine you're an adult daughter and you have
Yeah.
aging parents and you see them a handful of times a year, if that, to have now a different level of connection with them, conversations that are kind of heavy. And depending on your relationship and your relationship with money and all that, can get
Yeah.
really sticky to say, hey, what's your estate plan? Or hey, if something should happen to mom or dad,
Yeah.
what's the plan?
And we're like a super communicative, emotive family. Like certainly in our kind of nuclear family here, we do a lot of sharing and caring, but not every family's like that. And even for us, it's freaking hard. And so for those families that don't talk about feelings that much, it can be really, really hard to
Yeah.
go here.
It's a delicate topic for sure. And Pasquale Doran has some advice on that front too. Take a listen.
You cannot force someone to do something that they're not ready for. And most of us stop quickly, right? Well, they don't want to. And that's that.
Mhm.
And that's that for a long time. I mean, there's people that's that for years. I don't really know what the plan is. I asked that one time at that one Thanksgiving and they were like really closed off.
Yeah.
So there's going to have to potentially be a persistence to it. It's also the framing of it. People usually believe that it's too soon until it's too late. So anyone that's listening, having these conversations and normalizing aging and death. Our culture doesn't. This is a quote dark conversation. This is quote morbid. It can be, I believe, so deeply in this reframe of let's make this empowering. When this is actually happening to the parent, it is devastating enough. Let
Yeah.
us just sit in those really hard feelings rather than the goose chase of what did they want? Where are the things? Where's the paperwork? Being able to approach a parent, if indeed anyone listening has a parent who is healthy or mostly healthy at this point, this is the only guarantee we all know in humankind, right? This is where we're all headed. We don't know much. Nobody knows how their life is going to evolve, but it's definitively going to end. That's it. And so the more often we can have these conversations, even now with our own children, of this is what I want. This is my belief system. This can be actually a beautiful thing. This is how I believe our relationship can exist when I'm not here anymore in this form. There's a great book called Being Mortal, Atul Gawande. When I was teaching the healthcare system, it was almost a joke because it was a fall semester course always. And these were second year students getting their master's in social work. And so many of them would bring it to Thanksgiving or Christmas at the end of the semester. They were like, I'm like, presenting my parents with this book. But guess what? It's an awkward conversation. No matter what your relationship is like, that can be really paralyzing to not know how to begin, right? And
Yeah.
so to have a tool like that can be helpful. Hey, I had a friend who went through this and they recommended this book.
I would also add another book. I loved all the tools that she recommended. There's also a great book that came out last fall called My Mother's Money by Beth Pinsker. Beth
Mm.
is a CFP. She's also a longtime financial journalist. The book is part memoir, part how to on how to first have these conversations with your aging parents, but also important tactical things like power of attorney and estate planning and working, through all of the doctor stuff and the care stuff. And that book is called My Mother's Money. And by the way, Beth Pinsker, she talked about how her mother was on top of her finances. Her mother
Mhm.
worked her whole life. She had a will. She was very buttoned up. And yet there were a lot of things they learned the hard way in the moments when her life started to decline and her health started to decline, that Beth had to step in and was really like just trying to get that power of attorney. Oh my God, what a nightmare. So important to have these tools because the reality is in that moment, it is so difficult. You've got the emotional stuff that you're dealing with, which is plenty, on top
Yeah.
of now having to go and search for these things and learn about things for the first time.
Yeah, and sometimes you're dealing with whatever the situation is that's stressing you out, and you're all knotted up, and it's not pleasant to experience, certainly, that kind of stress and anxiety and depression sometimes, but it's also not pleasant to be around, whether it's a loved one or a healthcare professional,
Mm.
someone just trying to help you out, and you're like a raw nerve. How do you regulate your nervous system? We spoke to Doran about that too.
To be responsive and not reactive, no matter what. You're talking to the nurse, you want to pull your hair out and swear at them. You're speaking to your wife about something that may seem, simple or in a moment. We are carrying so much angst
Yeah.
and weight and anxiety and stress. Our most loved individual will often be the recipient. And if we can learn to have some level of regulation through just a breath work, or if you can step outside, do the 60 seconds of jumping jacks, a few push-ups, cold water on your face, an ice
Physical
cold
activity,
shower.
right?
All of that is truly just neuroscience based regulating in terms of the systems it's turning on and the systems it's cooling down. You're going to still be mad. You're going to still be stressed. Nobody has the magic wand to get rid of the
Yeah.
situation or get rid of the emotional response, but to be able to be responsive to something rather than reactive can help us then communicate better.
Mhm.
And it removes that cycle that most of us get in of that like shame guilt spiral,
I get
right?
that.
And then that
So
takes over. I'm a big
yeah,
proponent of medication when it's necessary. I don't
yeah.
prescribe, I'm not an MD. Absolutely get a consult. The comparison I often use is like if you have a knee injury,
Mhm.
you're likely going to go to physical therapy and you will wear a brace. You will
Yeah.
wear that brace until you are strong enough in your PT to take the brace off and do PT alone.
Mhm.
Medication can often be one tool to help manage while the world is on fire and
Yeah.
while you're implementing all the other systems.
Well, thanks so much to Maris Pasquale Doran for taking the time to speak with us about all of these issues. You can learn more about her work at marispasqualedoran.com. We will put that link in our show notes.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, she also has a children's book out called Piper Chen Sings, which she wrote with her sister-in-law, Philippa Sue.
Oh, I know Philippa Sue.
She played
Hamilton cast.
Eliza
Yes.
in the original Hamilton
Oh,
cast. Isn't that cool?
that's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah. Do you think that they make her sing like that would be enough at every Thanksgiving dinner? Like
I hope
it's kind
not.
of a great Thanksgiving song,
I
actually.
remember when she came to the Watchung Booksellers to read that book. I wasn't able to go, but I remember reading about it. I thought that was so cool.
What's the best song?
Eliza.
What's your favorite Philippa Sue song on Hamilton, you think?
Oh gosh. Don't quiz me on Hamilton stuff. I saw it obviously on Broadway once. It's all I could afford.
Seriously.
After many rounds
We went
of cast
once.
changing.
Yeah, we did not get to see the
No.
original, but I think it's Helpless. Her song, she did that song, Helpless, bum, ba, ba, dun. It's got that groove to it.
Bob hit it.
When you look back at me and suddenly I'm helpless. All up in those eyes.
Well,